Hi everyone, welcome back to Bernina Club, the last one for 2022. So I'm going to show you a very quick and easy thing you can make for Christmas, and this can go in a centerpiece, but I have done this before one other year, but this is an easier method. So originally when I made this I put binding on it, but with this one I'm going to show you that you actually just use 2 squares of fabric and you sew them together and you self-bind it. So I'm going to show you how to make this today. It's very easy, and obviously you won't have time for Christmas 2022 to get it finished, but you'll do it for Christmas 2023, I am sure. It looks lovely with a candle in the center or a bunch of flowers and a vase, but yeah, really, really nice. So you are going to start off with an 8-inch square of fabric, and I have got a 6-inch square of iron-on pellin and a 6-inch square of fabric for my center. So whatever color you want for the center, you're going to put in here, and whatever color you want for your binding, you're going to use as your background. So I'm just going to iron this onto here because it's iron-on pellin, and if you need to, if you are concerned, just put a pressing sheet down, which is just this little pressing sheet, and you can simply sandwich your pressing sheet and just give it a little press so it's ironed and it just holds it in place. Iron-on pellin comes in 2 weights. There's a lightweight and a heavier weight, and for different things I use the different weights. This one is the heavier weight, just to give it a little bit of body, but you can use the lightweight as well. The lightweight we sell a lot for on the back of hand embroideries, and it just gives it a bit of body, and also for using for ribbon embroidery. So there's my inner part, which is going to be this part here where I've got this white fabric. And then I'm just going to take the crease out of the back of this backing fabric now, because you don't really give them an iron later on. Here we are. Now all you do is you place this in the center, and you must have it so it's square and you've got the same amount all the way around. Do you love the way I checked that perfectly? Now, the thing you want to use for this is your clips. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to the iron and you're going to press this in half all the way around. So you've got a 1/2-inch press, and then it is going to be folded over your fabric. So I'm just going to put a clip in the center. I'll go to the iron shortly. I'm just going to press it in half by fingers and press it like that. So it's very easy. So the first one, you just give it a little press with the iron and you press it all the way up to the end. So I'm actually going to make that crease go all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm just going to iron that. So before you do the next fold, you want to do that. Okay, now I'm going to press it in half again. So I am just, no I'm not, I'm going to fold it on an angle like this, like that. Okay, so nice and easy. Then I'm going to fold this down to meet. I have to do it down on the flat. So I'm going to press that there, give that a little press. Shall I get all this junk out of the road so you can see? Yeah, and then fold it in half. So I'll lift this up to show you. So every single one is done exactly the same. And it's very, very, very hot today using that. And give that a press. So if I go like that, there, and then fold it in half. I'll just put a clip on there so you can see that. Okay, so nice and easy, just fold it in half. Now what happens when you fold this over, this point will make the mitre. So it's very, very easy. So this point comes over and it makes the mitre. Yep. And pull it over. and then you just clip it. And you do the same to the other end. So press, and then fold down like that, and then fold down again. So it's 2 folds, and then flip it over. Okay, so when you get to this point, this then comes over to form your mitre. Okay, like that. And give it a clip. Okay, so once you've done it, you've got, here's one I prepared earlier. You have got all your 4 corners all clipped, ready to go. And you can use a couple of different feet. So this is the 71 foot, and it is a lapped seam hemmer. So if you're going to be sewing a really big quilt, you can machine stitch it with this foot. If you don't have one of those feet, you can use your number 10 edge stitch foot. But for a big quilt, this will make it better. So what I'll do is I'll show you both. So I'm going to put on my lap seam. So this is foot 71. I'm going to just put my thread through the middle. I'm going to tell my machine that I've got a 71 foot on. So it will let me sew. Now what the 71 foot does is, see how you've got this, this is your lip here. You're going to place the fabric over the foot like so. Put your foot down. Now your needle position will need to come over to the left so that it's going to sew nice and evenly on the edge. And what you do is you sew all the way to the corner. When you come up to your corner, pretend it's a quilt. When you come up to your corner like this, you're going to need to put your needle down, and you're just going to slide your fabric out. Okay, so I just went like that. Now the fabric is underneath. Use my scissors or an awl, and now I'm just going to sew up to the corner, go all the way to the point where your fabrics meet, needle down, turn your work, and then slip your fabric up over your foot again. Yep, like that. And that's how you use the lap hemmer. It's very, very, very precise and very good. The reason why it works so well is the foot's design, so it sits and it will stitch perfectly even. Okay, I'll just show you it once again. So as you're coming down, when you get close to your point, put your needle down, the foot will lift up, pull it out, get your awl or your scissors to hold the end, sew to the end, needle down, turn, and then slip your fabric up under the foot. Tweezers would be good for this. Oh, one moment please. I moved the fabric. There we go. Oops. My needle, this is good to show you, my needle didn't go on this side, and when I lifted it up it did that. So when you come down, the needle needs to go in that fabric there, or else it'll do what it just did. So I might just turn this back around and come down and do that point again. So that was purposefully done to show you. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try that again. So come down, needle has to go in the layers. In the layers. Turn, and then you can slip it under because you've got something to anchor it. There we are. Okay. Now I'm just going to come halfway down, then I'm going to show you with the other foot. I'll just anchor that and cut my thread. So if you don't have one of these feet, you can use your number 10 foot. Now the reason why the number 10 foot can work is because it's got this little guide, but when you come to the corners you're going to have to lift that up or else it'll push the fabric away. All right, so I'm going to tell my machine I've got the number 10 foot on, and I'm going to clear my work so it goes to center needle position because I had moved my needle position to the left. It's very good for your brain, this sewing thing, because you've got to think. Now this time I'm going to run the guide along my fold, and I'm going to put my needle position 2 clicks to the left. Okay, so this time it's a little bit different. I'm going to run that guide along the edge, and when I get to the point I'm just going to leave a pin to hold it. I'm going to lift the top of my foot up just slightly so that it sews over the top of that little lip. Needle down, turn, and then keep the edge of your fabric there. So this is good for a small project, but for a quilt I would much prefer to use the 71 foot. But this is good for a little project, the number 10. So you know, there are so many feet out there, but I think this one is my most used foot. So again, needle down, lift the middle of the foot up just so it goes over the lip, come all the way up, needle down, turn your work, and then line it back up. And when you get to here, I'm going to have to unpick that little tiny bit because I started too far in. Then you just cut your work. Okay, and there you have it. Now you do, oh, I can't remember now, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 of these. Now the next step is you need to mark them. So I'm going to mark 3 inches from here to here on one corner and 1.5 inches between there and there on the other corner. So what I do is I just use my little gauge and I do 3 inches, and I will put a mark like so, and I will put a mark like so, and 1.5 inches on this end and 1.5 inches on this end. Now all that happens is you draw the line on every second one of these squares. You don't need to do every square, it's just every second square. Like that. Okay, that's all you do. Then you get your squares and you simply just sew from the 3 inches down to the 1.5 inches and the 3 inches down to the 1.5 inches. Then you flatten it down and you bring your pieces together. This one's just got to have another bell on it, and you either hand stitch or machine stitch these together. Now the other thing you can use this for is it could have knives and forks and a serviette in there. But I have mine with a red candle in the centre, and I think it looks really, really nice just for a centerpiece. So that's just a fun, very, very, very easy thing for you to make for Christmas, for a statement, and a lovely thing to make as a gift. Now what I'm doing for all the grandchildren this year is I found this little Christmas tree in your Bernina book, and the idea of the Christmas tree was it had a serviette like this in it. And it was all done with machine embroidery. So what I've done is I've traced off the Christmas tree, and in here, instead of doing this machine embroidery, I'm just going to do 2 buttonholes. So I've got this really fun felt, and I'm just I laid my pattern down on here, and I got my water erasable pen, and I just folded it and put a mark down where I want my buttonholes, here and here, and I'm going to do this all just by machine. So I'm going to put, I cannot use my automatic buttonholer. Now the reason why I can't use it is because this buttonhole is too wide. So I need to use this number 3 foot. So everybody should have a number 3 foot. This is a 3C because I have a bigger machine. So I'm going to put this foot on and I'm going to make 2 buttonholes, but I'm going to use gold metallic thread. So because I'm going to do that, I have got my gold thread here and I always keep my metallic needle with it. Metallic needle has an eye 3 times the size of a normal needle, so the thread won't split. So you know the first thing you're going to do is cut your top thread and pull it from the bottom. You're going to put your buttonhole foot on and tell the machine what foot you've got on. So I'm going to put on a 3 and then I will pick, interesting, I am going to do that, the number 3 foot. For some reason it's going to number, I don't know what it's doing. It's not letting me choose a number 3. So I'm going to go to buttonholes. And now will it let me? Yes. So that's interesting. I had to go to buttonholes before it let me choose my 3C foot. I've not had that. I don't think I've had that happen before. Now I need to change my needle. So I'm just going to take my standard needle out and put it on my thread. Then I'm going to put my metafull needle in, remember flat to the back, and do remember that you should change your needles every 8 hours of sewing, not every 2 years. That would be handy, and I think the technician would be very happy that you did that as well. Right, now when you're using this thread, make sure you've got the thread feeding off nicely, but also this one is wound around, so it's going to sit on the top here and go this way. Now make sure you have your felt on and make sure your foot is up when you thread so your tensions are open. Yep. And make sure your needle threader is working perfectly because it's so much easier. Now this foot's got a slit on the side so I can slide the thread there. Now one thing I did think about just right now is a bit of tear away. Well, this will do, a bit of freezer paper. I always like to put a bit of stability in behind my buttonholes, just so that there is something there. So either iron-on interfacing, a bit of tear away or whatever you've got. I've got a bit of freezer paper, that will be fine. Now I am going to make the length of the buttonhole the size of my little pictures I've drawn here. So I'm going to choose a manual buttonhole because I'm doing it manually. So I'm just going to stitch down from top to bottom. I'm going to put my needle down and I'm just following my line. When I get to the bottom, by the end of my mark, I will push the next part of my buttonhole, so I'm not making a automatic one because it's too big. Number 2 will feed back. Now Bernina have designed their buttonholes so they always feed forward and it gives you a nicer buttonhole. Now I can see my bobbin thread being a bit strong. I probably should have put a gold bobbin in, but what I can do is I can take my tension down. So I'll just do that. It's only a buttonhole for this. Bar tack, and then feed the next one. The next one I'm going to put my gold bobbin in my bobbin case. It definitely needs it for this particular buttonhole. So feed down. This time it's going all the way to the end. And stop, and then the next one does the bar tack and the last one locks it off and cut. So I'm going to put my gold bobbin case in so we can see the difference. Now when I cut there, this thread spun a little bit, so be aware of that and make sure that it hasn't tangled anywhere. So just be aware, this thread is very, very wiry, and so it does pay. Now this will be interesting. So I'm going to put my gold bobbin case in, and let's have a look at the difference in the buttonholes in a minute. So I'll bring my bobbin thread up because I am using the metallic thread, and it's such a lovely thread to use it most of the time. There's my bobbin thread up, and I'm going to clear it because I changed my tension, and I'm going to back up to number 1. So this time I've got gold thread in the bobbin and gold thread in the top, and I'm just going to do another buttonhole beside this one at the same level. There we are. Straight away you can see the difference. So I could have played around with my tension, but sometimes it just pays to put a matching colour in the bobbin. Just don't mess around with it, you just don't need to. Or I could have used a different bobbin case, but to make life easier, I usually have bobbins that match my thread, and sometimes it's just as quick to do that. So come down to the end. And you'll notice I do not go really fast with metallic thread ever, because it can still shred even if you've got your perfect needle in. It's just a bit of fun, and having so many grandchildren I've had to make quite a few of these, but that's okay. And on Christmas Day, they're not even going to appreciate them. It'll just make the table look pretty. So it's not a bad speed. It certainly wouldn't do that if I had a standard needle in. It would just shred. When you get to the end, remember we're doing manual. So everything's manual, and then the last one locks it off. And cut. Now what I'll do is I will just cut this thread, and you will see how amazing it looks. So here's metallic thread, and here's metallic thread on the top, but white thread on the bobbin. So this one stands out a lot more, and obviously you can see it clearly on the back. So when you're using either a tearaway or an iron-on interfacing, you can cut it back. But this is just a little bit of freezer paper, and freezer paper is great for this job as well. And there you go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little quick unpick. Now, you know the deal. Go from the end to the center, and from the end to the center. But when you're teaching students or grandchildren, or if you're worried yourself, put a pin on the end. Wish my sewing teacher had taught me this when I cut through my first blouse. Then when you go here, you can go all the way to the end, and no, you can't cut through it. Okay? Very easy. Now what I'm going to do is I just laid this down on my backing piece. The pattern originally had a bit of wadding in there. It's not required. And I'm going to put my number 10 edge stitch foot back on. Tell my machine that I've got my number 10 foot, 10D dual feed. Okay, and now I'm going to just stitch all the way around here, and my buttonhole is where I can thread my knife and fork through, or my serviette. So they're quite a cute little thing to do. On this one, I've just got metallic thread on the top and plain thread on the bottom, and being the first one I did, I put the fancy felt on the back. What a waste of money. Just use plain white felt. And we also have this felt in green, sparkly and red. So for the green ones, I'm just putting plain green on the back, and for the red ones, plain red. So all I'm doing now, again, just showing you this edge stitch foot. I won't go around it all, but it's just to show you. Put it back onto straight sewing. Now remember also, when you're doing things like this, you are going to move the needle position over, because the guide, if I sew now, it's going to sew into thin ear. So I'm going to move the needle position to the left and decide that's 3 clicks to the left, and I'm going to sew all the way down to my point. Nice and slow. You really don't need to pin it because it's just small. Come down to the bottom. I've got it on hover so it lifts up, and sew to the next point, and that's how you make them. They're 2 very easy things to do for Christmas. Stop, lift up, stop and turn, and there you have your cute little Christmas trees done. But instead of doing it all by embroidery machine, which you don't all have, I've created it so you can just do it by your standard sewing machine. Lift the middle bit up and lift and turn. And if it doesn't perfectly match underneath, you just trim it when you're finished. Love it. Can't go wrong. I'll stop there at the end here because I've got other things to show you. But I just thought that might be a nice easy thing, and you've all got the book, so you've all got the pattern. So sometimes you need to just check out what's in the books. So in the pattern you can see they've rounded all of these edges, and on this one I decided to leave it crisp and sharp with points. You can do what you like. Okay, now I'm going to showcase 2 feet. Remember, cut the thread, pull it down from the center, put in your standard bobbin case, and I'll use the white thread so you can see my stitching. Now these 2 feet I have shown you before, and the reason why I want to show you them again is because I've been doing some gathering with linen. And when I went to Australia, my sister had a skirt that I quite liked, but I was never going to pay the money that it was worth because I don't really go buying clothes. And so I may have decided that that idea was quite good, so I changed it slightly and made it my own. So she's calling it the Julie skirt because that was my sister, but it's just a linen skirt with some ruffles. So that got me thinking, oh, I must show you how to do it. So this is the skirt, and these are the ruffles on the skirt. So this started me doing the gathering. Now this was all raw edged, so it's not clean finished with rolled hemming or anything. So if you don't like the raw edge look, then roll edge each side, okay, before you go stitching it on. So it's just a cute little, very easy denim linen skirt. My sister's one had 5 ruffles. I chose just 3 ruffles, and I just did them slightly different widths. So with the skirt, it has just been completely finished off, and these are stitched on afterwards, okay? So what I was doing was playing around with the different fabrics. Now, different weights of fabrics will work differently with gathering. So I'm going to put on the number 16 standard gathering foot. Now this foot is designed for the 5.5mm machines, and this foot is designed for the bigger machines. You can see how much wider it is. I have both because sometimes I want a narrow gather next to my seam, and this one is good for a wider gather. Now these feet can also gather straight onto a garment, but linen is too thick. All right, so I'm going to just quickly show you these, and you will see the difference, and then after the break I will show you how I gathered the linen using a ruffler. All right, So first of all, we've got our standard needle back in. I'm going to tell the machine I've got a 16 foot, not a 16C, just a 16 foot at this stage. I'm going to put that on. Remember, if it doesn't have a gap, just do that. Now, the lighter the fabric, the more the gather. Okay, so here's a really, really light chiffon, and I'm just going to put it in underneath. Now, all you do is you can leave it on your standard stitch length, but the longer the stitch length, the more it's going to gather up. What's very hard, oh, I'll tell you what I will do, which will be interesting. What's very hard is every fabric's going to react differently. So how do you know how much fabric to allow? So let's measure this. This is 60 centimetres of fabric, so let's see how much this gathers up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of fabric as a starter there, so it's not sewing on to nothing. And then I'm just going to run this fabric. Now what I do is I put my finger behind the fabric. Oh, we're not going anywhere. I have done that too close and we're not going anywhere. Now see, this is good. If this ever happens at home, don't go like that and pull it out, okay? It hasn't jammed up the machine because there's no cogs showing, but if you ever get a fabric that's gone down into your machine, what you do is you take out the bobbin case. So take your bobbin case out, no matter what size it is. Take your hook out. Once you take your hook out, it releases everything. Now this is going to stop you from damaging anything in here. Now on these big machines, they have thread cutters. So if you go pulling your work out, you could bend those thread cutters and you'll be in big trouble. Because what happens when you damage those thread cutters is you have to pay and get it fixed. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got this around the right way before I put it back in. And this one, it has little lugs on the side here. And so I'm lining these little lugs and this little central hole up with my base to put it back in. And I honestly can't see anything. So I'm just going to do it by feel. Because otherwise I have to get down on my benders. And you can usually just feel it and wiggle it around, but not today. Oh, miles away. I'm right round completely the wrong way. Where's my hole? There it is. It's funny, you can do it sometimes just so quickly and easily, and other times you've got to hold your mouth right. I'll turn this. Oh, good idea. Yes, he's right. Turn your balance wheel. Thank you, Stephen. Excellent. So, you know, you've got to ask the technician how they do it in the workshop. I don't normally do that. I just shove it in. Okay, should we try this again? So I've got a bit of tension on here this time. And you want your bobbin thread up because you're going to be gathering. That's what I forgot to do, wasn't it? I forgot my bobbin thread up. I'm on straights. Oh, I had moved my needle position over to the left, remember, and I forgot to clear my work. So my fault, that was completely my fault. So I'm lengthening my stitch leg out. It's now on center needle position. Excellent. So now I'm just putting my finger behind. This is not liking it at all. Interesting. So my needle might be too fat. I'm just going to try it on a different fabric and see. So either my needle is too thick for that fabric. Let's try the cotton. Interesting. See, I like to make the mistake, so you don't need to. So this is a cotton fabric. Put foot down. Ah, so that's interesting. So that needle is no good for that chiffon. So see how this is gathering up? But I'm keeping the tension of my finger on the back, and I'm using my thumb to push my fabric through. Okay, needle up, foot up, and look how much it gathers. Same length of fabric. Isn't that incredible? So that's gone from 60 to just under 20. So every fabric is going to gather differently. Now the other thing you can do with these feet is you can get your fabric, your garment, and your gathering fabric. So I'll have to put a finer needle in for that fabric. And you can slide the piece you want to gather in the middle of slide the piece you want to gather underneath and the piece you're gathering it onto in the middle of the foot. So the one that I'm gathering is underneath. There we go. And the one I'm gathering it onto is at the top. So I need to have one hand under here and this one's holding this one up. Okay. So can you see it's starting to gather? It's very clever, and you know it's your feed dogs that help that work. So your feed dogs, by going forward and backwards, are helping that go onto there. So cool. So just keep your fabric up. I should have cut the fabric straight, but that's all right. It doesn't matter. It's just to show you. Very, very clever. So you can gather straight onto a skirt or a top or a hem, but cut your fabric straight. It's very, very, I love it. I think it's amazing. Foot up before you pull your work. Now here's my garment and here's my gather. Okay, now what I can do is I can fold that up like that, and I can get my number 10 foot. You can see why I have to have all these feet. I can get my number 10 foot, put my jewel feet on, and number 10 foot. Now this time I'm going to put my needle position to the right because my gather is on the left. So I'm going to put my needle position to the right, and I'm going to top stitch that way up the top here. So I'm running my guide down my stitched piece, and it's going right in the fold of those two pieces. Now there's one look, but if I want to, I can bring my needle position all the way close and run it really, really nice and evenly close to this end. And you can decide which look you like. And cut. And there you can see the difference. So you can either have your hem, I do that probably on a skirt, or you can have a really nice tight little top stitch on a ruffle like that. Now the difference between these feet, this one, so this will be able to stitch this width from the edge. Now when I put this one on, it's going to stitch wider. So I'll just quickly show you that. And that's the two different feet. So this one's still a 16, but it's for the 9mm machines. Now remember to bring your bobbin thread up to the top, which I had forgotten earlier. Oh, tell it what foot you've got on. And by the way, if you've got one of these machines, the 16 foot just shows as the 16 foot. It's not a 16C, it's just a 16. So you can't choose a different foot. These two both go under 16 on your machine. Now, so now when I do this, clear it and lengthen, my needle's way over here. So it's doing a deeper depth. So I could roll edge this piece and then do it deeper, but look what you can do on any of the feet. Either of these feet, you can just go down the center. And you can use ribbons, you can do anything. So you can just gather it all the way down the middle and have a ruffle. And remember your thumb is feeding your fabric. There we go. And it's quite springy really, so you can do a ruffle down the centre, you can do ruffles on the edge, but if you're sewing the two together you can only do it on the edge. Okay, now I'm just going to try this with 2 layers of this and see if it works, because it just might work with another extra layer. So if you don't want to roll edge your fabric like this, that's roll edging on an overlocker, you can just simply do an edge like this, which is 2 rows of straight stitching. Okay, we've done it many times and it's just using your number 10 foot. So I'm just going to see if this will ruffle onto this one, being that it is 2 layers of fabric, not 1, but I still might have to change the needle. We'll just try it. So this one on to this one with 2 layers of fabric instead of 1. Let's just see. Might work, it might not. Oop, not a good start. You've got to get the fabric in. This is very slippery. Okay, so we'll just see if it does work. So underneath is going to gather on. Okay, so it likes a little bit more thickness, but very slippery. So when you're doing it, make sure you hold your mouth right. There we go. Once you get started, it's good. So allow a little bit of fabric. And you can see this will be a slightly different width. There we go. So just single layer with just a little bit, put in a finer needle. And there you have that gathered on. Doesn't gather as well as the other fabric actually, they're all different. Okay, so it's done a wider seam at the back. So you can see how different fabrics, this gathered beautifully, this gathered beautifully, and that gathered onto here. Now look what happened when I tried to do this one here. It was a disaster. So this is a straight cut of linen, and this is what I was going to do through my skirt. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. Got my wide foot, cleared it, lengthened my stitch length, started to go like this. Wait till you get it started and ruffle it. And I thought, oh, it's going to be really good. And it looks okay, but with a ruffler, it is going to tuck it evenly. So if you like this look, absolutely use it. But with a ruffler, it's going to make tucks. So when we come back, I will show you how to do it with the ruffler, and that's what I use to do on my skirt. Okay, so we'll see you soon.